Welcome to this series where we're going to talk about early game in Endless Legend. This is the introduction video of the series, and typically we're going to have each video focus on one faction with maybe a couple of videos for basics. First we're going to discuss traits of the faction, what are the specialty, how to approach their early game, and then we're probably going to run one or two games with them to look at different scenarios. So this series is aimed at beginners with Endless Legend. I'm definitely not a pro at the game. I don't beat the AI in Endless yet, but I think I can help some beginners player with their early game. So if you know other YouTubers, there's someone named Panchasu which has done some first turns guide. I think is a great source of inspiration. However, my videos are more about helping beginners going through the first turns of their Endless Legend games. So why videos about early game? I think early game is probably the most important part of Endless Legend. It's probably where you make the most strategic decisions, and you've got what we would call a butterfly effect, meaning a small decision that you take on turn 2, 3 probably will have a big effect on your middle to late game. I think it's very interesting. So what do I consider early game in Endless Legend? To me, early game is probably the first 20 turns in fast. It's probably when you reach era 2 or maybe 3 of your scientific research. And I think by the end of your early game you probably should have 2 or 3 cities if you're a faction that sees going wide instead of tall. I'm going to come back to wide versus tall later. So in these videos we're going to talk about 3 aspects of gameplay: situational, faction, and static base. So the first aspect we're going to discuss is situational. Situational gameplay is what I call all the strategic decision you're going to make depending on your spawning position, the type of terrain. Have you got any neighbor? Are they far from you? Who are they? Where are you positioned in the world? Are you near the sea? Are you inland? All of that, every game is going to be different. It's very situational. I can give you some advice, but they're not going to apply to your game because they are situational, specific to my game, but they're still important to know nonetheless. The second aspect of gameplay we're going to look at is faction specific. I think this is where Endless Legend brings a lot compared to other 4X game, because every faction of this game is very different, plays very different, they've got a different play style. And I think that brings a lot of replayability to the game. That's what makes Endless Legend really special to me. So as a faction, what are you going to favor? Do you want to expand fast? Do you want to not expand? Are you Empire going to be tall, or which means big cities but small number of cities, or going wide, which is more cities but smaller ones? So this is all faction specific, I would say. And then you would have probably a common base of playing Endless Legend. So this is pretty much advice that work for almost all faction, like a good build order, research you probably don't want to look at, research that you should always prioritize. So these are the 3 aspects we're going to discuss during these videos: situational, faction, and the static common base of gameplay. So to finish this introduction, I'm just going to look very quickly at a new game and talking about presets I'm usually using when creating a new game. I usually go with quite a lot of AI, probably between 6 and 8, just to get some diversity, get the game more interesting. Difficulty, I think, when you start going into art, serious, probably impossible. The AI becomes much more responsive. They're going to attack you. They're not just reactive, they're going to be proactive as well, which makes the game more interesting. Game speed is going to be fast. this is just because you want to play as many games as possible, because every game is very interesting. The world map, I usually quite like to go for a large Pangea with a few islands. Islands are always interesting, especially now with Tempest, they make it even more strategic, I would say. Both hemispheres, that's very interesting to know that you will have an equator which will be warm in the center of your map and cold climates on top and the bottom. This has its importance when you play certain factions. Continent, I don't really care about that. The only interesting thing is the size of the region. I like to have large regions just because it makes things more interesting if you want to go tall. If you decide to go for small or normal one, or even tiny, well, it's going to be difficult to go tall, so it means less possibility for your gameplay. Topography, I really like lake, and I like rivers, so I always go with many. And ridges and cliffs makes your combat, for example, quite interesting if you've got quite a lot, because then you can take advantage of cliffs if you have like flying units or for moral boost. So usually we go with some. Weird difficulty, Empire Spawn, Chaotic, which it's like a proper random. The normal random will pick one of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible choice. I think Chaotic is better because every faction, every empire will spawn at a very random place. Normal strategic and normal luxuries. I think it's important to have some. It's important that there are not too many, because if there are too many, you're probably not going to care that much about going to a region that has the resource, because you probably can find it somewhere else. If they're a bit more rare, it's going to be more strategic to go to that region and make some choices, like do I want it, do I want to fight over it? I think that makes the game more interesting. Anomaly, always good to have more anomalies. They look really good, they make your early game more interesting and your decisions more difficult, because it means more choice for settling location. Minor faction difficulty, I usually go with easy or normal. I mean, not really important for early game, I would say, because you won't have much confrontation with them in the early game. And that's it. This is all my settings for the world in Endless Legend. Next video will probably be about one of the newest faction in Endless Legend. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little introduction, and I'll see you for the next one.